Your brain is more powerful than the most advanced supercomputer in the world. Every second, billions of neurons fire and communicate with each other, sending signals that control everything from your heartbeat to your thoughts and actions. But what's truly amazing is that all of this activity creates a subjective experience of being, which scientists call consciousness. So how does the brain work? How does it take all of these electrical impulses and turn them into the rich, complex inner world that we call mind? That's what we'll explore in this video. We're going to look at the different parts of the brain and what they do, how they work together to create our inner world, and some of the latest theories about how consciousness arises from the physical matter of the brain. Before we can talk about how the brain works, we need to answer a more fundamental question. What is consciousness? At its simplest, consciousness is the state of being aware of yourself and your environment. It's what it feels like to be you. Your conscious experience includes your thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. It's your inner world. But there's a lot more to consciousness than just these basic elements. For example, we also have unconscious processes that take place in our brains that we're not aware of, such as breathing or heartbeat. And we also have subconscious processes that we're not consciously thinking about, but can access quickly, like riding a bike. Consciousness is also dynamic, constantly changing and evolving as we interact with the world around us. It's also highly personal, unique to each individual, and shaped by our life experiences and memories. Despite its importance, consciousness is still a bit of a mystery to scientists. They don't fully understand how it arises from the physical matter of the brain. This is known as the hard problem of consciousness. To better understand this complex phenomenon, scientists have developed various models and theories to explain how consciousness arises from the physical matter of the brain. One of the earliest and most influential models is the Chinese room thought experiment proposed by philosopher John Searle. The Chinese room thought experiment was designed to illustrate the difference between understanding a language and actually understanding what the words mean. Searle argued that if a person is placed in a room with a set of rules for manipulating Chinese symbols, they could correctly respond to questions in Chinese without actually understanding the language. This thought experiment has been used to argue against the idea that computers can ever be truly intelligent because they simply follow rules and don't actually understand the information they process. Another influential model is the global workspace theory proposed by Bernard Baars in 1988. This theory suggests that consciousness is like a theater where information from different parts of the brain is broadcast and made available to the rest of the brain. More recently, scientists have developed computational models of consciousness that attempt to simulate the neural activity underlying conscious experience. These models aim to capture the subjective feel of consciousness by integrating information from different sources and creating a coherent, unified experience. While these models are still under development, they provide a promising approach to understanding how the brain creates the rich, complex inner world that we call mind. No matter how you define it, consciousness is one of the most fascinating aspects of being human. And while we still have a lot to learn about it, we've made some incredible discoveries in recent years that shed new light on this mysterious phenomenon. If you want to delve deeper into the science of consciousness, there are several key concepts and theories that you should know about. Let's explore some of them now. First off, let's talk about integrated information theory, or IIT. Developed by Giulio Tononi and his colleagues at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, IIT is one of the most comprehensive and mathematically rigorous theories of consciousness. At its core, IIT proposes that consciousness is a fundamental property of any system that integrates information. According to IIT, the amount of consciousness in a system is measured by a value called phi, which stands for the information that the system integrates. The higher the phi value, the more conscious the system. IIT has been applied to a wide range of systems, from single neurons to large networks of neurons, as well as to non-biological systems such as computers and artificial neural networks. While IIT is still controversial, it provides a useful framework for understanding the relationship between information processing and consciousness. Next up, let's discuss the global workspace theory. As mentioned earlier, this theory was proposed by Bernard Baars in 1988, and it's one of the most widely accepted theories of consciousness. The global workspace theory posits that consciousness is a process that involves the brain's frontal lobe and parietal lobe working together to select and broadcast information to the rest of the brain. The frontal lobe is responsible for planning and decision-making, while the parietal lobe is involved in attention and spatial awareness. By working together, these two lobes create a global workspace where information can be shared and processed by the rest of the brain. The global workspace theory has been supported by a number of neuroimaging studies that have shown increased activity in the frontal and parietal lobes when people are performing tasks that require conscious attention. Now let's move on to the concept of neural pathways. Neural pathways are the connections between neurons in the brain that allow information to be transmitted throughout the nervous system. When neurons are connected, they form a pathway that allows electrical and chemical signals to travel from one part of the brain to another. These pathways are essential for all brain function, including conscious thought and behavior. The strength of a neural pathway can be modified through a process called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity refers to the ability of the brain to change and adapt in response to experience. When a pathway is used frequently, it becomes stronger. Conversely, if a pathway isn't used much, it can become weaker. Neuroplasticity is thought to play an important role in learning and memory. By strengthening or weakening neural pathways, the brain can store and retrieve information that we need to remember. Let's now take a closer look at the different parts of the brain and what they do. The brain is a complex organ that can be divided into different parts based on their structure and function. Let's start with the cerebrum, which is the largest part of the brain and is responsible for higher-level functions such as thinking, learning, and reasoning. The cerebrum is divided into two hemispheres, left and right, that are connected by a bundle of nerves called the corpus callosum. Each hemisphere is further divided into four lobes: frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital, each of which has a specialized function. The frontal lobe is responsible for decision-making, planning, and personality. The parietal lobe processes sensory information such as touch and temperature. The temporal lobe is involved in hearing and language processing, and the occipital lobe is responsible for vision. Beneath the cerebrum is the cerebellum, which is responsible for coordinating movement and balance. The cerebellum also plays a role in learning motor skills and has been implicated in various cognitive functions, including attention and language. At the base of the brain is the brain stem, which connects the cerebrum and cerebellum to the spinal cord. The brain stem controls basic life functions, such as breathing and heart rate. It can be divided into three parts: the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. The midbrain is involved in eye movement and auditory and visual processing. The pons is involved in sleep and dreaming, as well as controlling facial expressions. The medulla oblongata controls vital functions such as breathing and heart rate. Finally, let's talk about the limbic system, which is a group of structures in the brain that are involved in emotion and motivation. The limbic system is made up of several structures, including the hippocampus, amygdala, and hypothalamus. The hippocampus is involved in forming new memories. The amygdala is involved in processing emotions, particularly fear and aggression. The hypothalamus regulates basic drives such as hunger and thirst, and also plays a role in the endocrine system. Together, these structures form a complex network that influences our behavior and physiology. One of the most fascinating aspects of the brain is the way that different parts work together to create a unified experience of the world. The brain is a highly interconnected organ with different regions that are responsible for different functions. However, these regions don't work in isolation. Instead, they're interconnected and communicate with each other through neural pathways. These connections allow different parts of the brain to share information and coordinate their activities. For example, when you see a delicious meal, your occipital lobe, which is responsible for processing visual information, sends signals to your frontal lobe, which makes decisions about whether or not to eat the food. The interaction between these two lobes, as well as the rest of the brain, creates a complex network of activity that results in the conscious experience of wanting to eat. The study of consciousness is still in its early stages, and we're still a long way from fully understanding this complex phenomenon. However, recent advances in neuroscience and technology are helping us to learn more about the neural activity underlying consciousness. By studying the brain and how it works, we're beginning to uncover the secrets of consciousness and what it means to be human. As we continue to explore the mysteries of the brain, we can expect to learn even more about consciousness and its role in our everyday lives. Whether we're developing new treatments for neurological disorders or creating artificial intelligence, understanding consciousness will be essential to advancing our knowledge and improving our world. What's your understanding of how the brain works? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.